One, welcome to our bi-monthly webinar. It is it's our bi-monthly webinar. It's a year now I've been doing this, and so welcome everyone. If maybe this is your first time, you could just write it down in the chat so that we could do a big clap for you, and for the returning, I wanted to say customer, for the returning guests, welcome. If it's your first time, can you just you know, let us know. This is my first time coming. What do you guys do here? And let us know how you got to know about us. And so welcome. So my name is Olubu. We're going to start immediately. And hello, first timer, iPhone. Can you tell us your name? First timer, iPhone. First time coming. It's been a year. Where have you been? You miss us for like a year. You've not been coming. Let's know your name. I saw iPhone. So Kemi. Hey, Kemi, how are you? Oh, Kemi, how are you doing? How are you doing? That's this my colleague in university. You've gone a long way. So Kemi, how are you? Welcome. Welcome. It's good to have you here. And so for all those others that this is their first time being here, welcome. Let us know you. Let's know you. And for those that are returning, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Um, I'm good. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's really good to be here. So let me give a little brief. My name is Oluwabumi. My name is Oluwabumi. I'm a behavioral therapist. And so what's behavioral therapy? I know a lot of people ask me that because they know about clinical therapy, they know about psychology, they know marriage counseling. So a behavioral therapist is one that is geared towards having behavioral change, insisting you have a change in your behavior out of whatever happens to you. And then therapy is me using all the skills and the tools to help you move from who you are to another person. So for me, your behavior must change, right? You must live. I'm not just going to counsel you. I'm going to work with you to insist and ensure that you move from who you are to who you want to be. Okay. So that's me. And this webinar started last year. I think it's upper year, but it's a year now. It started last year. And the whole idea of starting this webinar is to first of all demystify therapy, healing, emotional health, and letting people know that you need it. It's simple and it's easy, right? And so over the times, we've invited people that are working in their everyday life. We've invited them to come in and just share, what one of the major life skills that they use, to navigate their situations from where they were to where they are, going to be, right? And so that's the whole idea of, behavioral therapy. And that's what we've been here. So in a year, a lot of people have joined. We've had a lot of people come in, a lot of people join, a lot of people. How many guests have I had so far? Sorry, I couldn't do the maths. I think we've had like 5, 7 guests come in. And the last one we did was about bullying. And that one was really, really, that's the last one we did last year, October. I think it's in October before we moved, and I couldn't do December. I was meant to be December, but I couldn't do December. So we are here February. I left January out, but a lot of people are busy January. So today we're going to do healing of the soul. I want to do like, I was trained to be a teacher, right? So if I want to do like to ask people questions. And you could just put it in the chat, but that's what I feel like doing. So when you were coming here and you said, and you saw the topic, healing of the soul, what came to mind? What came to your mind when you saw the topic, healing of the soul? What was it that, you thought we were going to do here? One person can just drop it. Don't worry, if you don't have anything to say, it's still good. Yeah, somebody unmuted. You came here to do healing of the soul. What came to mind? You could drop it in the chat box. You could drop it in the chat box. Healing of the soul. What came to your mind, right? When you got healing of the soul, what came to mind? Okay, so let me leave my teacher stuffs down. A lot of us have heard about healing of the soul, what the soul means, like we've all heard this over and over. Healing of the soul, what does the soul mean, like what's going on with the healing of the soul, and why am I bringing this at the beginning of the year? So let me just give a brief about it. So what happens is that a lot of times we desire. Yes, somebody said, let me check, please. I want to check the chat. Somebody said how to deal with emotional exhaustion. What came to my mind was a process of restoring inner peace, clarity, and emotional balance, gradual restoration of your inner world, and onboarding. Gracias, like perfect, perfecto. So will be teaching ourselves here today. Oh, that's what we're going to be doing. We'll be teaching ourselves here, right? And so you guys are actually really, really, a lot of you are right. So what I notice is that a lot of people understanding my feelings instead of suppressing it. Exactly. So a lot of people understand healing of the soul. A lot of people know, okay, I need to heal my soul. And it's a topic that have been going on for a long time, right? But there's always that confusion about what the soul is not. And there's the very ambiguity of the soul. And sometimes the overflogging of the soul. So it's either ways, humans, we can either move to the extreme or move down. But one thing about healing is balance. If you go to the extreme, there's a problem. If you go too low, there's a problem. Balance, right? So we're starting with the healing of the soul. And I called it healing of the soul. So people will call it healing of the soul. You can call it restoration of the mind, right? And I'm going to tell you why I use mind, right? We could say is the healing of the soul, is the restoring of your mind, repairing of your heart, and rebuilding of your inner man. So you see that a lot of your answers was right. So the first one is, if you could write it down, I'm trying to do my slides, but it looks like the slide is giving its own advice today and saying, I'm not doing this with you guys. So let's see how it goes. So it could be healing of the soul, right? Let me see again. I just don't know why this thing is behaving like this. But let's let it go. So healing of the soul, restoring the mind. Can you all see my slide? I think the slide is on.
That's
But
all.
if you can't, let's do. Okay, okay, then let's go ahead. I think my laptop is hanging. So healing of the soul, restoring of the mind, repairing the heart, and rebuilding the inner man. So you can go all ways. You can say, I need my soul to be healed. Somebody will ask you, what's the meaning of soul? Right? I'm going to like talk very low. What's the meaning of soul? So that's why I said restoring of the mind. But if I say I need my mind to be restored, it's easy to understand, right? If I say I need to repair my heart, it's easy to understand. Or if I say I need to repair my inner man, or I need to rebuild my inner man, it's easy to understand, right? So it could be any of those ways. So I'm going to do a bit of a therapy session with everybody. So I'm going to ask you questions. Pause and reflect. Have you ever reacted stronger than the situation required? Like something happened to you. They call it overreact, right? Have you ever thought that, I think I overreacted? I think I kind of overreacted. Has it ever happened to you? You don't even need to answer me. or it's something you should think about. Have I overreacted? Have I behaved overboard? Do certain memories linger more than they should? Something happened to me, and then I just see that it's so difficult to let that memory go, or the memory is just there. Or do certain memories carry emotional weight? What explore what emotional weight is, meaning that you remember something and it has a weight on your emotions. We are talking about could be positive or negative, right? Let's use both. But as you are here now, you remembered something. Some people can go as far as even remembering the taste of what they ate when that thing happened, or the perfume in the atmosphere, or, you know, that's how far people can remember situations. So that situation, you've not healed from it. Or I can ask you, are you functioning or you're flourishing? Meaning that are you just going by every day and just doing what you have to do, every day? So just let me just give you 2 minutes to pause and reflect. Have you ever reacted stronger than the situation required? Reacted stronger, like something happened to you. And your reaction, you yourself, you shock yourself. You're like, ah, ah, ah. There are some things that if you're sincere, you ask yourself, think I overreacted, right? And one thing about overreaction is that you can control yourself most of the time because they're like reflexes. It just pops up. Right? And do certain memories carry emotional weight? Let me give an example. During this week on social media, there was this lady that talked about, I think her name is Mirabel, talked about, going through rape. And a lot of women or people, both male or female, that were reacting to the situation were not reacting to the situation based off of what she was saying. A lot of people were being triggered just by the memory of that thing. So a lot of people were triggered more than they should, which sometimes you could say is rightly so. That was an injustice done to her. But what happens to overreaction is that you let go of critical thinking every time you overreact. Because we think overreaction is justified. That's why I use a typical example of rape and all that. Every woman, some people they don't even know how to describe. They know rape is bad, but they've not experienced it. So it's almost like this is sad. Some people were angry, insulting, like those behaviors. Anyway, anytime you are somewhere and you react, how you get to know yourself is look back. The reaction and the situation, are they proportional? In physics or maths, are they directly proportional? Or I really overreacted? Did you have time to answer these questions to yourself? Or I should ask again. Have you ever reacted stronger than the situation required? Do certain memories still carry emotional weight? Like, do certain memories now still carry an emotional weight? Maybe something happened to you, or in secondary school, or okay, let me give another example again. So last week, my children's school, they there was riots, right? So they put tear gas. And so I think they felt it in their school. And my children were traumatized. And I almost was laughing at them that tear gas. In our own time, they throw tear gas well, right? Their own reaction was actually adequate because when we were going to school, when we were going to, school, riot was okay. And so it seems normal, right? But the interesting thing is that I could relate very well. I could even smell as they were talking. I could tell them and explain what tear gas feels like. I could remember, and I could remember everything in detail, right? That's an emotional weight. And I realized that, oh, this thing happened. I could even remember vividly the day when they were in secondary school, it happened, people came into our school, all the, commotion. That memory carried an emotional weight. It did. Did I go? It just took me time. Oh, this thing happened. We were traumatized in school, or those kind of things, right? But it's good to know what emotional weight you are carrying. So I wanted to say something. It's a quote, right? Healing is not weakness. A lot of times when somebody takes a pause and say they want to pause, that something happened to them, we kind of shame them because we think, move on, especially Nigerians. Nigerians, we have some different level of ruggedness that we carry, and we glorify our dysfunction a lot, right? And so when somebody is taking a pause to heal, or when somebody's coming to meet a therapist to heal, you almost shame the person. Like, I don't think you should, I think you should move on, and you give people, but healing is not weakness. Healing is restoration. Knowing that the heart, which is the soul, can break. Now, let's give an example. So the human body is made up of the human being is made up of the body, the soul, and the spirit. When our body gets any form of trauma, we quickly go to the hospital or look for something. For instance, you're having headache, or you had a cut, or you had actually physical trauma, meaning something cut you. You quickly go to the hospital to heal because you know what happens if you leave your wounds unattended to, and you know what happens when you leave your wounds to fester. But a lot of times we have emotional traumas, right? Things happen to us psychologically, emotionally, and we assume that it doesn't need healing, that we can just go on. No, what's happening to you is that emotionally, your soul can actually break, your soul can actually be wounded. And that's one thing I'm coming to say here. You can have soul wounds for years. And the truth is that so many people have carried soul wounds for 100 years, if you're 100 years old. Sometimes soul wounds are generational. A father had the soul wound, transferred the soul wound and the behavior to the children, and the children transferred the soul wound to everybody. Typical example, very typical example, the Black Americans. The slavery that happened to them was a huge soul psychological wound. They've transferred the soul wound, the culture, the behavior down generations. And so you see an average Black American kind of overreact sometimes, but and the most painful part is that their own soul wound is so generational that they've used a lot of things to cover it up. Let me not go ahead of myself. But I'm giving an example of what soul wounds are. So if you don't remember anything here today, remember that your soul can break, your soul can be bruised. I use the word mind, because your soul is your mind. I'm going to go on. So your soul, your mind, your heart can break, can be wounded, can be bruised, and it needs to heal. And you need to know how to heal. Just like you go to the hospital when you have a major cut. There are some cuts that is so simple that you just do something and you go. But there are some cuts that you have to go to the hospital there and stitch it. You have to go back to go and stitch it. You have to go through some things. When you're not feeling well, some is stitching. So when you're not feeling well, you have to take some drugs, to administer some drugs. That's the physical body, right? But what happens to mind? So now, what is the soul? In Hebrew, the word for soul is nafesh, right? And they are quite deeper. Why a lot of people like to use Hebrew words is that Hebrew is almost like Yoruba, you know, Igbo and African cultures, they have deep meaning. So the meaning means inner being, life. So Hebrew calls soul life. And they believe that the soul is one that carries your real behavior, your real interaction, that the skin that we see, that we take so much time. And look at when I was coming today, see, I made up, did my face, did all those things, did my hair, which is beautiful, but the real me is not Bumi that you're seeing. The real Bumi is the one speaking to you. You can't see what I'm saying, but you can hear me. That's my soul speaking to you. And most of the times, the people we interact with every day are our souls, not our body, right? And so you interact with a lot of people that they are wounded, right? And you are interacting with people that are wounded, carrying heavy wound, bandage. Some people, maggot, bandage all over, carry heavy things. And that's the person you are interacting with, right? Have you been at the bus stop before and you just made a mistake to step on somebody and the person lashes out on you? What's happening to them is that they are bringing the wound, in their soul and just pouring it out because they've not taken time to pause and reflect, right? And so in Hebrew, the word for soul is nefesh, and nefesh means life, meaning that life, the real you, is your soul, not your body, not this person you're seeing, right? The real me is my soul. So I want to bring it in so that you understand why your soul needs to be healed, right? The real you is your soul, it's your inner being, that inner person speaking, the person that carries the will, the emotion, the intellect, your emotional self and your breath self, your breath being. So for Hebrew, if they say the soul, they understand that they're not talking about this physical body that they can see, but the life, the inner being, the emotional person, the person gongo. So gonga gonga. Somebody used to say that, right? So the soul includes the mind, which is our thoughts, right? So your soul includes your mind, your thoughts. Sometimes we think that our thoughts are just thoughts. No, your thoughts are real estate. They are real estate. I read a book not recently, for a while. I really did a study of this book about Dr. Caroline Leaf, neuroscientist. She's one that really brought about the fact that your mind can break and can heal and can repair, which is your soul, right? So your thoughts, as I'm talking to you now, thoughts are going through your mind. That's you. So a lot of times it's good to pause and hear yourself, right? Like so that you get to know you, so that you yourself don't shock you. You get so your soul include your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, how you feel, right? And your will. A lot of times, the one that take people by surprise is will, right? We believe that our will it's is the will. So most of you chose today to come here, right? It's your soul that made that decision to come, right? Your will, the decisions you make. And so if you sit down and you realize that you are somebody that have made continuous negative decisions or decisions that have huge circumstance and impact, there's something about your soul that is telling you something, right? If you are somebody that your mind goes on an overdrive, something happens to you and your brain is a perfect replayer. It replays. Some people, something happens to them. They will replay it and replay. No, that's who you are. That's not who you are. There's a broken soul. Because that's not your soul shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be replaying when someone did something to you and then you are replaying. You can replay. Your mind by itself is sitting down and is going on an overdrive, replaying. And the first question I asked before about your emotions, right? That do you do overboard, right? Or underboard? Yeah, because it can happen. Something happened to you and you don't know how to use the appropriate emotions to express something, right? Either you over or you under. There's still something about your soul. Like I said, the soul is the real, you know, this you're saying about Bumi is not the real Bumi, it's the one speaking. Right? And how you know people is really not who they say they are, but who they really are. When they've lost their guard, what they really say, that's the real person. Not when, that's how you know people. When people lose their guard, and that's how, I had a friend that was um almost into this pipe thing, and he would explain. They check the real you, how you fumble your hand, how you do a lot of things. It's saying something to you. So the spirit, soul, body. So the spirit, like I said, human beings, we are made of the spirit, the soul, body, right? It's just that the body takes a lot of attention. We bath it, we brush our teeth, we make up, we ladies, we put lipstick, we wear earrings, we go to the gym, we wear fine clothes to eat, we eat, we take it to parties. Like, we take so much emphasis on our physical body, which is good because that's what everybody sees. But we all know it's fake, or we all know that's not the real us. So your body is a physical expression. It's what people see about. Your spirit is your connection to God. It's that person that connects to God. But that's not the only person that can connect. Actually, your spirit, soul, and body should have a perfect unison with God. God wants the three. But right now, I'm just saying the spirit is the one that connects easy with God. That's the spirit being of you. And your soul is your personality, your thoughts, and your emotional pattern. How you think, your personality, who you really are, is your soul. Right. The soul is the bridge between the spirit and the body. So the soul is the one that is the bridge, like the connector. The soul is the one that connects the spirit and the body. The spirit and the body. The soul is the one that merges a lot together. So why I said that is that means that when your soul is wounded, your life becomes distorted. Because when you have a wounded soul, it appears on your body, whether you want to agree or not. It appears on your spirit. It appears on how you believe in God or how you don't believe in God. If God speaks to you, how you hear, how you interpret. Your soul determines, like I said, your soul is your will, right? It's your will, it's your emotions. I'm going to talk a lot, but I'm also going to I wrote a book, right? And in the book is where the real gist of how to go. But I'm really going to talk about the book sometime soon. But before that, I'm just because a lot of times you really need to the real information of this soul. Why I said about the book is that explaining the soul body connection. When you say the book, you're really going to read and understand because I gave a lot of details about the full connection so that you're not confused again. Because there are some religions, which is New Age and they believe the soul is the perfecto and everything is the lie. Science and everybody has proven that. No, the soul is the one that connects, it's the connector. It's the one that connects the spirit and the body. So once the soul is broken, it affects the spirit, it affects the body. Your soul is not your body. Your soul is the connector. Is the one that thinks, is the one that decides, is the one that carries the emotions. Right. So what is a soul wound? Right? A soul wound is an emotional injury that was never processed or resolved. And I'm going to pause. Have something happened to sorry, somebody's telling me to remind her to start. Has something happened to you that sorry, give me 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Has something happened to you that you just can't let it go? Think about it. Because I said a soul wound is an emotional injury, right? That was never processed or resolved. A lot of times, things happen to us and we don't process it, nor do we resolve it. Let me give an example so it can help you. Have you felt rejected before? And rejection is not only in relationships, right? Rejection could be you applied for something, you rejected one, rejected two. There's a lot of Nigerians that they reject us for visa. We are under this, category, right? Rejection, any form of rejection. And the interesting thing is that your soul never forgets. So if it even happens to you when you were 2 years old, 3 year old, the soul does not say, oh, it happened to you 2 year old, so it won't continue to be working in your life. No. So let me give a typical example. In my therapy, a lot of people come to meet me for therapy. Apparently, we go back to 4 years old. Something happened to them in 4 year old, and they didn't resolve it. They didn't process it. And that thing is still speaking and has created a behavior that is still happening to how old was the person? 30 something, right? 30 going to 40 something. And the moment we resolved, this was 4 or 6 years old, that thing happened to her. The moment we resolved it, right, and we processed it, she could see clearly. So what happens to emotional wounds is that remember that your soul is how you think, right? So what happens is that when you are wounded and you never process it, it clouds your decision, it clouds your mind. You can't see clearly. And you could pretend that you're seeing clearly, you cannot. Because the lens you're using to think now is the lens of what happened to you. It could be betrayal, somebody betrayed you. And like I said, this thing is not just relationships. Um, I'm wrong. Relationship is how human and relationship is how we relate to ourselves. But I'm saying not just man and woman relationship. It's how we relate. Like you could be betrayed, not boy and girl relationship. Like your friends, your family, people could betray you. Random people just, you know, abuse, right? Different, it could not be physical abuse, emotional abuse, but if you've experienced abuse, people did you dirty or failure, right? You failed. If it's even once and it wasn't processed, it wasn't resolved, you didn't look at it, you didn't resolve it, or you've experienced shame, right? You've experienced shame and shame has taught you something. What happens is that all these things that happens to you, they teach you something, right? They tell you something. I'm going to go so that you'll see that all these things that happen to us, they now start to teach us something. In they give you a view about something that is not really true, but they do. So that's why emotional wounds, you have to address it. When you're dealing with emotional wounds, you have to address it. It's not I just sweep it under the carpet. I'm fine, you know. No, you have to address it. You really do have to address it. I want to see. Okay, somebody said no. So let's go on. I'm going to take time to be looking at the chat too, so that if anybody is saying something, I flow, right? Or chronic disappointment. Disappointment is there. Chronic disappointment is there. So anything that happens to us really has to be processed or resolved. There are some things that you've developed enough stamina to understand what happened to you, right? But there are some things that you've not developed enough stamina because they've been happening from when you are younger that you misinterpret it. So it's always good when things happen to you, take time, process it, resolve it, and process it with a professional. I know why I said professional. So if you process an emotional wound with someone that's already wounded, the person reinforces the emotional. So let's give a typical example. A lady or a guy chop breakfast. Breakfast means for the people that don't understand what breakfast means that they were betrayed or jilted or something. And you go and meet someone too that has experienced that kind of thing. The person will reinforce the brokenness. The person will be like, that's how men are, that's how women are, Help you not to be whole, but reinforce a negative um, conversation that's actually, if you go and meet somebody that is educated in emotional healing, right? The person would be able to help you process the information. and you can now take the truth out of something. So what happens when something happens to you is that you have to take the truth out. And it's not everybody that can see truth. Truth has to be seen, right? And it's not everybody that can see it. So when pain is not processed, what happens? Unhealed wounds show up as overreaction. It shows up as emotional numbness. Some people, they're emotionally numb. Like, um, some people were talking about being, I think I said it on social media. The lady was talking about being expressing domestic violence. Right? And some people were giving tips on how to cope with the domestic violence. Those people have experienced emotional numbness, right? Almost like it's a numb. So they've numbed their emotions so much. So when you don't process pain, what happens is that you numb yourself. You forget about yourself. You overreact. You people please. People pleasing is a thing. A lot of times you value the opinions of people more than God or yourself. You value other people's opinion, what people say about you, what people think about you, how people will feel about you. And you cloak it to look like you are being accommodating, right? But if you truly look at it, you are people pleasing. You are taking other people's opinion and giving it too much weight that it should have, to the detriment of you and even God, right? And that's what happens is that you were wounded somewhere, right? And you feel that the only way to have peace is to make everybody around you be peaceful. So you walk around eggshells, because if everybody's okay, then I can have some form of control, right? Some people don't like confrontation at all. At all, because confrontation is taken as a negative connotation. So they don't confront anything. They let things slip under the carpet. Why some people over confront things. Everything must be confronted. They die fighting there. Right. Like I said, you go up or you go down. The whole idea is balance and control. If you really like to control people, control things, control outcomes, control how things appear, control everything, there's an emotional wound there. If you are a sticker for control and perfectionism, right? So people that are perfectionists and control is the same thing. They want to control everything, like how people see them, how people view them. They control the narrative. They control people's emotions. They want to tell people how to breathe, how to not to breathe, how to talk, right? It's an emotional wound. Something happened to you that you feel the only way you can be okay is if you control the outcomes. And we realize that we're living in a world that we cannot control. So you should be okay when things don't go your way. Like, it should be okay. Life did not end, right? You should be okay. And anxiety. And I know a lot of people have dealt with anxiety and they think anxiety is good, right? Because anxiety has a way to look positive, right? So anxiety makes you think that, okay, if I'm not anxious, then I would be lackadaisical or I would, not be serious. That's not true, right? So a lot of people have made anxiety to look good, but anxiety is a negative emotion. It's not positive, right? Anxiety is not a positive emotion. If your emotions has to go overboard to keep you on your toes, then there's something wrong. Then anger is something that we've cloaked, like we've said, so they cloak it to be something that you have a good personality, you're bossy. So you lash at people, you really don't care how people feel, you can control your anger. Nigerians that drive, like we heal ourselves, right? So we are driving on the road. And then you might say, but you might be having a good day, and then somebody just, how Nigerians used to do. It's like they've sent them that when you're driving on the road, they should come and annoy you. And then if God help you, that you're not driving in the midst of people that Nigerian public transporters, either by Korope, whatever, those that are not in Nigeria, yeah, you might not understand, right? But out of Nigeria, there's also the issue of road rage, right? Anger, not knowing how to control your anger. Anger, all these things. Let me explain anger a little bit, then we move on. So, it's an emotion that one thing about anger is that anger is an emotion that wants to be satisfied now. Very selfish, very self-centered, and very loud. So when you're angry, right, anger wants you to satisfy it now. Anger is that child that throws tantrums. So if you don't remember anything, remember that anger is tantrums. So anger is that child that is throwing tantrums. It wants to be seen, it wants to be heard, it wants to, the emotion, not knowing how to control it, it wants to let it out now. So that's one thing about anger. So I've said a lot of things. I'm going to give time for you guys to ask questions, but we're going to move on. Like I said, let me go a bit into this. So this is the book. Can you see The Science of the Healed Soul? There are more of the information into here. There are more of the information into here, but when I asked myself, what should I do this webinar? And I started praying about it. This what came to mind. And when we're talking about the soul, we can't finish it, in just 1.5 hours. We can't. And so I'm going to do a lot to explain. But if you want more, let me know. You get the book. I'm sure people would post, how to buy the book on the post, right? So that you guys can see, and you see how to buy the book, right? And so there's something that I have here, which is the soul restoration model. It's called the soul restoration model. I want to try this again. Okay. Sorry, guys. The laptop is not giving me the. So we have the soul restoration model. It's a model so a lot of people have explained soul wounds, right? And healing of the mind. This is the easiest. That's why I chose it. It's not like it's the most perfect, but in my book, I dived deeper. But I'm looking for something that I could do now that is easy for you guys to understand. So there's the acronym SOUL, which is the SOUL. S means see the wound, like see, look at the wound, right? S, see the wound. O means open the wound safely, right? U, understand the roots, and L, live from wholeness. Okay, so let's go to S, see the wound. So the thing about healing is that healing begins with awareness. If you want to start healing, you realize that it can take you 4 years to just be on an awareness journey. Some people call it clarity journey, right? And so the book will explain, will show you how to gain clarity. That one is clearer. In the book, there's a lot of explanation on how to gain clarity, because if you want to heal and you do not have clarity, you cannot heal. Like, if you know they see the thing, let me say fig broken. If you not see the thing where they do you, how you supposed to heal now? You can't heal, right? I have to say it in pidgin so you guys can understand, right? So see the wound. You have to see it. What's going on with you? A lot of times people come to meet me for therapy. They come with, oh, so and so happens to me. By the time I break it down, we are living not what they brought. Because a lot of times you come with symptoms. Just like going to the doctor and said, I'm having headache. A good doctor will not treat the headache, will treat what led to the headache, because the headache is a symptom of something happening. So a therapist, so when you come and say I'm depressed, will not start treating depression. We go to what happened to you that you are depressed. So our job is to go on a fact-finding mission. So that's see the one. That's why I said if you get the book, you will understand, because sometimes if you just, and that's why a lot of people say they did therapy and then they think they're okay, they go because they just went on a clarity finding mission, which is fine. And then they just tell themselves, I am this, I am that, and they live with it. That's not the end, right? Clarity is not the end, but clarity is the beginning. And clarity takes a major part because clarity allows you to see yourself and accept yourself first, right? Let me explain what see yourself means. So you could see yourself and then let yourself know that I'm a very negative person, right? You could see yourself and say, I'm a very angry person. You could see yourself and say, I really don't like myself. I really don't like me. You could see yourself and say, I'm nasty. Like I'm nasty. So people actually have nasty behavior, right? You could see yourself and say that. You could see yourself and say, the way I am, if me, myself, and my friend cannot, that friendship not gonna last because I know a better person, right? Clarity. So you have to see the wound. So healing begins with awareness, and awareness take a lot of journey, a lot of honesty. You cannot heal. Sorry, please, I need to take some water. So I said the first one is see the wound. Healing begins with awareness. You cannot heal if you don't know what is doing you. See the wound is diagnosis. If you go to the hospital, so a lot of people that self-medicate, what happens is that they their body becomes resistant to the right drugs that want to help them, right? Their body just malfunctions. So what happens to self-medication is that your body malfunctions. The thing that should heal you, it shouldn't heal you. You just go. Some people die in the process. Some people major organs mess up. That's for the skin. The same thing for the soul, right? So see yourself. Healing begins with awareness. So ask yourself, please, you can write this down, when you leave here. But like I said, when you get the book, you dive in better, you have more work, like really work. The whole idea of writing the book is so that if you don't even see a therapist and you are diligent with the book, you would really get healed, right? So healing begins with awareness. Ask yourself, what triggers me? This is a good question to ask yourself. Oh. Like, let me say it in pidgin. Why do they always vex me? Like, why is this behavior annoying? What triggers me? What is it? Like what is that thing that triggers me? Right? What's still hot? Like something is still hurting you now. It's 10 years, it's 20 years, it's 30 years, but it's still hurting. And you are even surprised that you're still hot with this matter, right? What's still hot? It's still hot, and I can't deny it. I can pretend to everybody I'm not hot, but I know in my heart I am hot. I'm still hot. What is that thing that triggers me? That I know that it triggers me, even though I pretend to everybody, but inside the thing still they pain me, right? What story do I keep replaying? What is it? What is something that I keep on replaying? Like I can't stop replaying it. The thing, if I sleep in the night, the thing is just coming and coming. If somebody asks me, this thing that happened to me 20 years ago, and I can say it, I can say the story over, or my mind just is a perfect reminder. And a lot of times we think it's good for your mind to not forget. It's not good. You are under bondage. You are under a big burden. Your mind's job is not to keep on replaying past events. No, no. As good as you can tell yourself, oh, I'm good at it. No, no. That shouldn't be what your mind is for, right? You cannot heal what you refuse to name. Like I said, this is just me using the icing, right? This is the icing. This is not deep, but this is me bringing awareness to these conversations. What you cannot heal, you cannot heal what you refuse to name. So you have to name it. Who are you? When you see your wound, it lets you know who are you. You don't even need to go and tell somebody else who you are. But look at yourself and like, ah, this is really who I am, right? It helps. So who are you? Sometimes some people, they are very, very bad. They can't keep money. So people, they steal, right? And they can clock it in so many things. But the truth is that you be thief. Not being mean. It's just that you have to see who you are. Some people, they are really, really bad people. Some people, they are really, really unforgiving. They can't forgive. They don't even know. They can't even justify why they should forgive, right? Something happened to you because you shouldn't be that. And like I said, soul wound could be generational. It could be something that your father taught you, your great grandfather taught you. So soul wound, you could inherit soul wound. Just like you could inherit body features, we inherit soul wounds too, right? You could inherit soul, get that and be free. You could inherit because even your body features, you inherited them. Yeah, in your DNA, you could inherit soul wounds too. Your soul wounds, you could inherit generational trauma. You can inherit it. And so you start acting in a way. You inherited the behavior, you inherited the mindset. So complete this sentence. Can you complete the sentence with yourself? Okay, I'm doing what if not what I'm doing? I'm taking one therapy and doing it. In the book, you have so many therapies and you have so many things to pick and do by yourself. Ah, complete this sentence. The pain I really talk about is sorry, I should have told you guys, taking a lot of water. I'm just healing from sore throat. So complete this sentence. The pain I really talk about is, you don't have to tell anybody. But what's that pain that you really talk about, but it's active, it's real, and it's there, right? So the other one is O, which is open the wound safely. Healing requires safe processing. That's why I said that a lot of times, let me not lie to you guys. If you truly want to heal, you have to find the right person to heal with. And the easiest and the perfect is God. Why? He will tell you the truth. And the truth he will tell you, he will not give you the grace to heal. And you find a professional. But the thing about professionals is that you have to do your due diligence to find professionals because there are a lot of professionals that would either break you more than heal you. So, what I would say for open wound is that the first thing to wound is pray about it. Yes, so someone asked, can we really inherit trauma? Let me read. Can we really inherit trauma? Is it a way of being born into it or a repeated behavior? I will explain it soon. Hey, Ruth. If I don't explain, remind me, I will explain that. So, and please, your questions, just drop them. I will give time to explain. So, one of the easiest and the best recommended way to heal is once you've seen yourself, right? Before you step out to go and look for a therapist, pray about it. Take time to pray. There's a scripture that says that God is closer to the broken heart. So if your heart is broken, which is obviously what we have been saying, God is closer to you. There's healing to you. Jesus Christ said, blessed are you that you are broken. Like, blessed are you. You are blessed because God is there. So healing requires healing pathway. So opening your wound, it requires a path. It's a process. That's why I said start with prayer because it's heavy, right? It's a pathway, it's a process. And be willing to go on the journey. Then after you've prayed, then you do counseling and therapy, and then journaling. Okay? Honest conversations. A lot of times we focus on the last one, which is lament, but that doesn't work. So suppression is not healing. Avoidance is not strength. Okay? A lot of people are perfect suppressors. Like something happened to them and they suppress it. They don't speak up. They don't tell anybody what's going on with them. You're not healing, no. And so wounds just hide if it's not addressed. They just go there, go there. So suppression is not healing. If something happened to you, like I said in the beginning, process it and heal. Avoidance is not strength. Talk about it. But a lot of times, people want to talk about it when their emotions is in balance, which is fine. But talk about it. The Lord is near to the broken heart. I have to say it again, Psalm 34. God is very near to the broken heart. So when you see yourself clearly, know that God is there. And God does not shame wounds, He repairs it. So if you have a wound, God is not going to shame you. He's not actually shocked. The truth is that God is not shocked that you have a wound. He's not shocked. He's like, sometimes we do something and we're like, God said go shock. God not shock anything. He sees all of us. He has seen you before. He knows you. He's just waiting when you wake up to come and see him and bring yourself as you are, not cover yourself. Like open yourself. So Adam and Eve, when they did what they did, they went to God and they said we are naked. Like, bro, God knows you're naked, right? So a lot of times that's what we do. We go and hide rather than open up ourselves who we are. So I'm going to pause here a bit and just, open up. A lot of times when you've done something or you can't come out of something, hiding just makes you develop coping mechanisms, right? That distort your character, your personality. And then you are light years away from who you used to be and you don't know how to go back. And shame really does not help you heal. Shame is a negative emotion, right? So shame does not, I know we're Africans, and Africans, we use the culture of shame a lot, how we raise children by shame. We're not changing that behavior. All we're just doing is making that child be a perfect liar, a perfect fornicator, just hide and do it behind closed doors. Does not mean they've changed their behavior. They're just very good liars now, and they know how to cover their tracks because shame is not a it's not a positive behavioral modification. It just makes you be a perfect. It just makes you know how to hide better and how to cope with that thing. And so shame is never good. It's never good, no matter what. I know this is me breaking some African tables. Shame no good. No matter how you can justify it. That person is just a good. Okay, for it, let me give an example. You caught a thief, right? Your son or your child or your daughter stole, and instead of you to address it, you shame the child by um, insulting the child, bring the child in the midst of all other family members, you discuss it, right? The child stole because there's a broken behavior in the child's body. Shame does not, the child is just going to be, now we have different children. Some children could be so traumatized by the event and they don't want to experience it again. So what happens to the child is that the child used another form of trauma to avoid that behavior, but the person did not correct the behavior. Used avoidance of shame. And I know for Africans it has worked, so we think it's good, right? But you have to, so once the child gets to a difficult situation that he's meant to use emotional maturity to heal, he doesn't have the skill to heal because he wasn't taught how to look at the situation and walk through the process of healing. Why did you steal? What happened to you? Look at the child's mind and walk the child through stealing. But we shame, we beat, we bring the child out. We're just teaching the person how not to be and how to be a person that lacks emotional maturity, right? And so we have a lot of emotional immature people. The whole idea is that it's from childhood we should have been learning emotional maturity by people around us teaching us how to change our behaviors. But if they've used the culture of shame, the culture of everything to kind of modify a behavior, or superstition to modify a behavior, we just become perfect at emotional immature people, but we don't really learn the skill of emotional maturity and heal and change. Okay? So understand. So you is understand the roots. Every wound creates a belief system. Here, this is very important. Every wound creates a belief system. Every wound creates a vow, and every wound creates a coping pattern. I'm going to say it again. Every wound creates a belief system. Okay? When a wound happened to you, you just create a belief, just be like, men are, Yorubas are, Igbos are. So every wound, if something happened to you, you either create a belief system from that thing, or you create a vow, say, I would never, I would never, people have been telling themselves, we do that. Or we create a coping mechanism. The example of, a child being shamed by stealing. The child just created a coping mechanism, but it didn't change the behavior. And so, like I said, I'm going to say it again. If you could write it, it would be good for you. Everyone creates a belief system. So a lot of beliefs that you have came out of an emotional wound that probably you even inherited. And a lot of our culture norms that we practice today are from emotional wounds that wasn't processed, but a belief system came out of it. I'm going to say it again. A lot of wounds that, a lot of culture norms that we've embraced now came from an emotional wound, relational issues, right? And then we developed some intertribal wars were just emotional issues that wasn't addressed. And so a belief system, a process on how we should treat a particular tribe came from it. Or something happened to you and you developed a belief system that you sometimes teach your children across cultures, right? Or you vow. So an emotional wound can happen to somebody and the person can vow. A lot of times, let me give a typical example without vow. A woman can see, a woman can experience emotional abuse or psychological abuse from her partner, and then she vows how to train her children. My daughter will never, my son will never. And then, but that vow came from an emotional wound, right? Or you experience betrayal or rejection, and you say a vow. You create a belief system, or you create a coping pattern. Just cope, okay? But the whole thing is that you are not whole. A wound happened to you. You should look at the wound and process. So a lot of us are not healed. And so we go to church or we go to everywhere to talk to God. God cannot reach us because he cannot reach us. We have created this thing on our face that nobody can speak to us again because we are carrying that wound. We are carrying, the baggage with us. So a lot of people that you are interacting with are carrying belief systems, vows, and coping patterns that came from an emotional wound. So how you can heal is look at that vow you vowed to yourself. Where did it come out from? Why did you make that vow? Why are you so strong on this particular belief system? Right. Some people say Yorubas are like, Igbos are like, Hausas are like. It's an emotional wound. Something happened to us emotionally. Let's use Nigeria as a culture. Our intertribal wars are from emotional issues. Betrayal, rejections, someone did you bad, and you vow and you take your whole family, and you explain the experience based on conflict or whatever, you created a vow. So, example of rejection, I'm not good enough. Nepa. Examples of, but you guys can still see, examples of, understanding the roots. I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not enough. Someone do something to you that you interpreted that I'm not enough. You know, betrayal. I can't trust this person anymore. I can't trust people that look like this, appear like this, talk like this anymore. Right? I can't trust people like this because they smell, and they look so much like that emotional wound that happened to me. So therefore, I cannot trust people like this. No, what happened to you was an unprocessed emotional wound, and you are carrying the wound along with you and creating a thought pattern from it. So I wanted to say something. So we have core wound, core belief, and core behavior. So what happened to you is that there's a core wound that happened to you. It brought about a core belief system, and it led to a core behavior. That's why I said that a lot of times our behaviors are from belief systems, and our belief systems are from wound. So a wound happened to you. And sometimes that belief system, once it's a belief system, you will teach others. You will teach your home. You will teach your children. And if you're somebody of influence, you will not even insist it at a culture. But it came from an emotional wound. It wasn't how it should be, right? Let me give a typical example. So in the Bible, the Pharisees came to meet Jesus Christ, and they were talking about divorce and all that. And how many, if this woman die, who is going to be her husband, blah, 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 blah. And Jesus Christ did not even answer that question. Do you know what he said? He said, in the beginning, it's not so. Moses gave this law because of you people's, let me just use my own, you are Boruku, right? And so a belief system. Now we have laws, constitutions about divorce and all that, right? But that came out from a dysfunction. So Christ was like, it wasn't so. In the beginning, that's not it. And like I said, I'm talking about healing, being whole. So we've created a lot of belief systems and culture and behavior from an emotional wound that happened to us. And so the way we behave, the way we function now is from an emotional wound. So when you sit down and you look at what are your core beliefs, what are the things you vowed you would do or you vow you will not do, what are the people that you vow that if they look, smell like this particular person, I'm not going there. So if God is saying this is even where you should go, you tell God, I don't think, God, I used to not seeing that this person looks like my ex that beat me with that, definitely. And if you even go in, you start insinuating that person, you start looking for the shoe to drop. So unchallenged beliefs shapes your destiny. Excuse me, let me drink some water. So unchallenged beliefs shapes your destiny. That's what happens. It shapes your destiny. Healing requires identifying distortions, replacing lies with truth, and renewing your mind. Like I said, once you see this, the link is in the bio. It's going to give you full details, but I'm just trying. It looks like I'm advertising. That means that I really wrote a good book. If I'm telling you guys, go and check, go and check, go and check, that means that this girl tried. She wrote a good book by the grace of God. So healing, yeah, I'll read it soon. So healing requires identifying distortions. All these I've been saying, you have to ask yourself, where did this behavior get distorted from? right? Replacing it with lie, replacing the lie with truth. Replace that lie that happened to you that you now created a vow or a belief system for. Replace it with the truth. And then go on the journey of renewing your mind. You have to be patient with yourself when you are healing because you've been that dysfunctional person for a long time. And that dysfunctional person has created a personality. And sometimes it has worked for you, right? And so you don't want to leave. So live from wholeness. So what does wholeness look like? Wholeness look like emotional regulation. You know how to regulate your emotions, right? You just know how to act right at all times. Not perfect, but you can control your emotions. You have a secure identity. You don't people please. You don't do all those kind of things, right? You are your identity is secure. Your decision making, when you look at the decisions you've made over time and you look at the consequences of your behavior, that's very important. Every time you make a decision, look at the consequence that follows that behavior. If you always have huge consequences on the behaviors you make, there's a wound in your soul because you should have less and even minimum negative consequences to your behaviors, to your decisions. Excuse me. If you know how to set healthy boundaries, I know a lot of people say they're setting boundaries, but they are blocking people. Block it, and it's cool. That's not healthy boundaries. We are avoiding confrontations. Healthy boundaries mean that you know how to put people in their places, and you know how to put your relationships in different categories, and those categories are peaceful, right? I'm not saying they are devoid of hard conversations, but I said peaceful. Peace and conversation, hard conversations, they actually go hand in hand. So when you have hard conversations, sometimes it's only to peace. So healthy boundaries, you know how to set boundaries with everybody. Forgiveness, not self-betrayal. So sometimes we don't understand what forgiveness means. We say we forgive people, but we are still in their circle because they've not changed their behavior. No, forgiveness, not self-betrayal. You could forgive somebody, but still create boundaries, healthy boundaries around yourself and how not to expose yourself to that thing, that healed you. Forgiveness also, you could forgive somebody and not replay the conversation or the reasons why they hurt you, right? You could forgive somebody and really end what they did to you, like stop talking about it. Peace without performance, like I said before, peace without performance, right? Peace without performance. Wholeness is not the absence of scars. It is the presence, it is the absence of infection. Let me say it again. Wholeness is not the absence of scars. Actually, whole means that you actually have seen scars that are healed. Wholeness means that those scars are not infested, that somebody can come. If you had a scar, if you had a wound, and then, okay, I have a wound on this hand, glass, if you guys can see, glass, hits. Now, if you hit the scar, it's not paining me again because it has healed, right? But this scar does not mean I've not healed. I have this scar, but I've healed, right? So scars does not mean you've not healed, okay? Scars actually mean you've healed, but infection, meaning that that behavior is bringing out another behavior, another behavior, another behavior, okay? So signs that your soul is healing is you respond instead of reacting. You feel without being overwhelmed. In our generation now, people feel that being overwhelmed is a good thing. It's not. You forgive without losing wisdom. Hell, you forgive, but you've not lost wisdom. You forgive with your eyes open. You saw the person's behavior, you critically evaluated the behavior, and you chose to forgive. Forgiving doesn't mean that you ignore the person's behavior, you ignore what happened to you, and you just want to go and blanket everything. No. Forgiving means you've seen it, seen what this person did to you, and you now made a decision to forgive. But you've learned something to it. You've learned what you did to expose you to that behavior. You've learned what that person did to expose the behavior, and your eyes are clear. You can see what happened. You stop performing for love. You really just stop performing for love. I can't, break it down. It will help you further. So the last but not the least is if you guys can write this down, then I'll answer some questions. You know, what wound? This is something I'm going to leave with you guys when you're going. What wound need attention? What wound are you going to take to God today? What wound are you going to say, God, before I sleep? This thing, like, what wound needs attention? What wound do you think this thing, I need to attend to it? What belief did that wound create? You can write it down. What wound need attention? What wound do you think that everything I've said today? What belief did that wound create? And what truth must you replace to it? When you're in the presence of God, He will give you a truth. He will tell you something that you can quickly use to replace it. So what wound need attention? What wound right now? I don't want to leave here without you taking at least one thing. What wound do you think that this emotional wound, this betrayal, this rejection, this failure, this disappointment, I need to attend to it. And it could have happened to you when you were 6 years old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 10, And what belief did that wound create over time? Right. And you're living in that belief system now. And what truth must you replace it with? Okay. And so we've come to the end of this, but I'm just going to go and look at questions. So, and please drop your questions. Rosie asks that, can we really inherit trauma, or is it a way of being born into it as a way of repeated behavior in the family? So Kemi answered, yes, in some ways we can really inherit trauma. Not like inheriting eye color, but trauma can pass from one generation to the next through biology, behavior, and environment. Yes. Kemi is right. I'm going to explain it very well. We can inherit trauma. Can you be healed alone? Or if it is related to relationship like marriage, very true, you are right. Okay, so I'm going to answer Rosie's own, then I'll go to Grace's own. Yes, you can inherit trauma. So there are a lot of psychological information now about trauma and people understanding the implication of how trauma. Let me give the best example. The Jewish Nazi people that were traumatized during the Holocaust season, right? The people that experience was really traumatic for them. It has been genetically proven that a lot of behaviors and things that they did now, the children that were not even experiencing, that they didn't even were not in the Holocaust, carry some genetical makeup based on the trauma they experienced. And it could be yes and no. Some people say, is it nature and nurture? It is for trauma and anything. But human beings are both spiritual, soul, and body, right? And the soul has a huge impact on our DNA coding, RNA coding, our emotions, our central nervous systems. It's even proven that there are so many sicknesses that's emotional sickness. that now act as physical sickness. For instance, high blood pressure sometimes, skin irritation sometimes, trauma could happen to that. So if that happens, that means that you could inherit your DNA coding. You could inherit a particular um, disposition to the way you think, the personality. You know, I explained the other time that your personality is also your soul. And like I also said that some people, you see them and be like, this person behaved like my father. And she never saw the father. And the father never taught the person anything. So how does the person behave like your father? Since we know behavior is from the soul, do you get? Some people will be like, this person behaves like my grandmother. You know, the person has my grandmother's personality. And personality is inherited, and we know personality is inherited. So, yes, nature and nurture, it could be both ways. It could be, like I said, you've had a trauma, you developed a vow, developed a belief system, and you taught it, transfer it, and taught it. But you could also go through a traumatic experience that changes your genetic makeup, literally changes it. It's been proven. It changes it completely. And you're a completely different person because of the trauma that you experienced. And all your sequencing and everything is changed. I gave the example of the Black Americans, right? And so, yes, Rose, hope it helps you. Um, if you have any other questions to follow up, I can help you. Can you be healed alone if it is related to relationship like marriage? I don't understand this question, but I would try and answer it in two ways. Can you be healed alone? Healing does not happen in silos, actually. You can't be healed alone. You can't. And I'm going to explain why. Human beings, we are relational beings. The reason why we don't want to be relational is because of wound. Apparently, we are created to thrive in relationships. Now, I'm not saying just husband and wife relationship. Your family should be, a place to heal. Your community should be a place to heal. Human beings, we should live in families. We should live. The scripture says that God keeps the solitary in families. We should. So you are not meant to do life alone. If you feel that I have peace when I'm alone, you've not healed. You are avoiding something. There's a wound that you're avoiding, right? It shouldn't be so. You could change. Maybe the family that you were in are not healed, are not exposed. You could, in the interim, right, be alone for awareness and healing. But that being alone is not only you being alone. You should find a safe space to be in. In this book, I explained that there's a chapter. Oh, the person that asked that needs to go and read this book. There's a chapter I explained the importance of community and what community does to the soul. I'm going to look for it. Uh, there's a chapter I did that I explained the importance of community and what community does. I can't find it right now, but there's a chapter I did that, and it will really help you. As I think it's chapter 13, the healing power of self-compassion and forgiveness. How you would know you have healed is that you are safe in a community. That's a sign of healing. You are safe in a community. You can work with people, you can move with people. So if you're asked that question, go read this. It's a good book. Me, myself, I'm enjoying that. Any other question? Anybody has any question? Any other question in the book? So to finish up that question, you can't heal alone. You could start alone if you've not found the right space, because sometimes it's good to be alone. That, okay, yeah, you please, there's a link. Though you'll get the link. They'll post the link again about how to get the book. So one thing about healing, I'm just going to move on with that, is that you could you usually start healing alone. That's why I said you start with prayer. And it's that S time when you want to see your wound. But the truth is that if you are so wounded, you really cannot see. You don't have the capacity to see because your seeing has been distorted. So you need somebody to guide you through seeing. If you've been so wounded, just like, let's give an example. Somebody had a trauma on the head, a physical trauma, meaning a cut, a huge cut. It's very difficult for you to administer um, closing your bandage by yourself on your head. Is very difficult because it's really a very critical place. But if I cut myself very slightly on my hand, right, I can quickly go heal it. But if I cut myself on my hand and I did nothing to it, and now the hand has taken infection and it has festered, you know that you can't do it by yourself again. You can't, because how are you going to administer healing? What are you going to do? The hand is dead, is infested, and some people even say you should cut the whole hand off. Okay, so you could start healing by yourself, but a lot of times you can't start healing by yourself because what happens to you can make your mind clouded. Let's use grief for an example. If you are going through grief, a 98% chance you can't see anything above your grief, or you are going through domestic violence. A lot of times you can't see anything above that. You don't have the capacity to be kind to yourself. You don't have capacity to even see beyond what's happening to you. But what's happening to you is real and it's affecting you, and a lot of time that affects everything about you. So you can't see, and you can't even sit down to see. So you need somebody to guide you through that process. So say yes and no. But healing, you can start alone, but you cannot finish alone. You really can't. Okay. Any other question before we leave? Okay. I think we are done. So for those that still want to get the book, the link is in the bio. We're going to
Please,
do
can I ask?
um
Sorry, Miss Bumia, can I
yes,
ask a
yes,
question?
yes,
Okay, so you
please.
said something about shame. So I totally
Yes.
agree with you on, that kind of shaming. But I want to ask that if you
Mm-hmm.
tell maybe a child, if you
Mm-hmm.
tell a child or even an adult that
Mm-hmm.
that you use this statement like, why did you do this? I mean, you should be ashamed of yourself. Now that's
Mm-hmm.
the aspects now. Does that
Mm-hmm.
fall under shaming? Or telling a child, bringing a child to the awareness or consciousness of what that child has done, and then ask, like tell the child that this thing you've done, is it right? Does it warrant
Mm-hmm.
praise or shame or something like that? Does it fall under shaming? So that's my question.
Okay. So the thing about it is that you are using shame wrongly in this context. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Is You're using it like a Nigerian language. That's why what you are trying to communicate is that you should not be happy with what you did. But it's just because in Nigeria we've used you should be ashamed of yourself, as a Nigerian language. That's why it's confusing you. So I'm going to explain what shame is. Let me explain shame. So shame is a negative emotion, right? You should be disappointed in your behavior. Yes. But shame is not a fruit that even God wants us to have. Right. So you should be disappointed in what you did. You should look at yourself and evaluate and say, I shouldn't have done this. Right. But being ashamed, what shame does is that shame lessen So shame remove what the person did to talk about the person. And nobody, you cannot change a behavior when you devalue the individual. That's why shame is a negative behavior, because shame goes beyond what the person did to now label the individual, the human. Do you understand? So when the person leaves you, the person would think that there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They just made a bad decision. They just thought wrong. But there's nothing fundamentally wrong with their humanity, who they are. But shame says that there's something wrong with you. You are not okay, you are not complete. Have you understood that? So that is why shame is not a thing that heals or changes behavior, because shame is saying something else about you, about who you are, not about the decisions you made or the behavior you made. Okay, thank you. You understand that? So it's just that it's an African thing. We know Africans, we've used shame as a behavior modification for so long that we think is right, right? But it's not. Shame is not. Shame should not be something that we do, because shame talks about the person, not what the person did, right? The person could do something bad, but generally the person could be a very good person, but made bad decisions, right? Didn't evaluate the situation right. Let's address that. Let's leave the individual, the humanity of the person. Hope that helps. And Isaiah, Jesus Christ said that he has come, instead of shame, he has come to remove it. So if Christ is coming to remove shame, why do we want to put shame on the person? Right? Okay. Um, okay. So I think we are done. Anybody have any question before we leave? We It's meant to be 1 hour, 30 minutes. We overshoot 2 minutes. So it's good to go. So thank you guys for coming. Our next webinar will be in 2 months. We will just be taking some from the book, discuss and look through, and just be discussing as it goes. So thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and have a good year. Happy New Year. And I hope this year brings a lot of healing. Because the thing about healing is that if you don't heal, most of the time you don't achieve your goals. So I hope this year opens you up to a beautiful healing journey. Au revoir, guys. Au revoir. Au revoir.